Welcome, everyone. My name is Tom Driscoll from EdTechTeacher. I'm happy to be speaking today with Kyle Wilson. He'll be one of the presenters at our upcoming Innovation Connection Conference, November 1st at Bentley University. So we're going to have a nice informal conversation here today to talk a little bit about Kyle's background, also some of the ideas that he'll be presenting at our conference. But before we do, I just want to do a quick introduction. So Kyle is the K-5 math instructional coach for 3 elementary schools in the Burrillville School District in Rhode Island. I'll give him a few minutes to explain a little bit more of his background. He's also a good friend of mine. We've known each other for a while. We presented at conferences. Our kids play sports in the same sphere. So really excited to be talking with you today and also have you joining us for our conference. So Kyle, maybe give us a little bit of background on maybe how you got started in education and the path that led you to your current position.
Yeah, so thanks for having me, right? It's a really enjoyable experience here. So again, I am entering my 14th year here in Burrillville. I spent 9 years teaching 4th grade and teaching all subjects in 4th grade. And I moved on and spent 4 years teaching 6th grade and 6th grade math specifically. And then this opportunity presented itself where I can be really a liaison, a math coach, and a liaison between, the curriculum director and the teachers, the boots on the ground. And I'm starting that this year, right? And it's been quite an experience. It's been a lot of fun to just see so many different classrooms and so many different teaching styles, really all teaching the same curriculum, but in such different ways. And that's actually been so cool to see. But really, I started education runs in my family, with my folks and, my siblings and even my wonderful wife, Caitlin, right? And she's a math teacher as well. And so really we're an education-centered family. So I have 4 daughters, all under the age of 10. So this is really the quietest part of my day. So I'm really looking forward to speaking more and to also doing this presentation with you folks at EdTechTeacher.
All right, thanks, Kyle. And we've done a lot of work together in the past through EdTech conferences, some work together. You've had a lot of experience working kind of on the front lines of emerging EdTech practices and tech tools. So I guess before we get into your specific topic area, maybe just tell us a little bit more about your background in EdTech. Like, what are some of the things that you've done over the years to kind of build up some of your background knowledge and experience in this space?
So really, I started, so much of this work was due to me participating in what they call the Fuse Fellowship back in 2014. And it was really when blended and personalized learning was still something that you had to explain exactly what it was. It's crazy to think about how long ago that was and how you had to explain what it meant and what its importance was and how you could utilize it in your classroom with very little effort in changing what you actually did. And so as part of this fellowship, it was a small group of about 25 to 30 of us. And we went in and really took a deep dive in how to give good professional development, around technology tools. But beyond the technology tools, what the fellowship really worked hard at was saying, how can you use these tools to make your teaching better, to make the learning better, to make the experience better? And I think for so long, folks got so hung up on tools that they really lost, through no fault of their own, but the tools can be overwhelming. And
Right.
so because they're so overwhelming, they would lose sight of what the actual purpose was. And I think that's really what the fellowship had taught me, was that, the tools are there to help enhance the experience, to enhance the data that you get, to enhance really the whole experience for the kid. And so really that evolved to the point where, one of the coolest experiences that I've had was really, I took my entire 4th grade class to a huge conference and to a blended and personalized learning conference. And we modeled exactly how our rotations worked in fourth grade, and how the kids took such great ownership and they enjoyed it. They had fun with it. They were making choices. Kids love choices. My own kids love choices. Your kids love choices. It's like they had choices, but they were guided choices. It really taught me the value of, allowing kids to have a productive struggle, and on the PD side of it, allowing adults the time to kind of struggle with something and to figure it out on their own. And I think ultimately, teachers like to figure things out on their own. They don't want to just be told what to do. They like right. The time to tinker the same way that kids like to. And that's exactly how I was as a kid.
Yeah, and actually, I remember when you brought the students that day, and I thought that was a powerful experience for a few different reasons. One, it empowered the kids to kind of share the ways that they learned best, but also I think from a teacher standpoint, they'll talk to someone like you or me that are like experts in the field on certain strategies, but it's also equally, if not even more powerful, just talk to the kids about some of these things, like what's working for them, what do they like about this process, and that's a huge part of it. I remember I brought a few different students from the Bristol Warren district when I was working over there. We went to actually a couple conferences. I think it was MassQ and Learn Launch, and they were working with one of my colleagues at the time, Jen Saarinen, and they were sharing how they used the Flipgrid platform to explain and make their thinking visible in a math class. And that was powerful for people that went to those conferences to hear directly from the kids. So I think that you not only implementing that with your class and sharing it with colleagues, but also preparing your students to be able to articulate those things was really a powerful experience.
And it was, and I think the cool part is you didn't have to rehearse it with them. Like right. They knew the premise already because these things were explicitly modeled, they were taught. And, right. And that sometimes folks just assume that kids are great at this technology. Yeah, they can find, as I always joke with them, they can find dancing cats on YouTube driving a car. But if you ask them to find a multiplication video or how to do long division, it's like those things still have to be taught to these kids. And there's a real value to that. And once they find these things out themselves, it really empowers them. It gives them some autonomy. Like, I found it, I figured this out. And that's a wonderful thing to see.
Excellent. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to shift over to like now, which is, coming up our conference, some of the things that we're going to be exploring there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up our webpage quickly and share that out with you guys. And then we'll talk a little bit about the event and then some of the things that you'll be presenting at the session. So let me go back to my screen share. All right, so this is our landing page for the upcoming event. If you haven't checked it out yet, we have a ton of amazing speakers. One of them you're talking to right now. You're going to hear a little bit more about Kyle's sessions, but we have Carl Hooker as our keynote. We have our whole EdTechTeacher staff, a lot of folks that are really powerful presenters and knowledgeable and passionate about the topic. But I think one thing that I'm mostly excited about with this event is that we're finally back live. Right. And this is the first one that we've actually been able to run live since before the pandemic started. So I think that that's something that is really, really helpful and powerful as an organization, that we can get folks together in a space and collaborate. And I don't know about you, but something that I always really valued with these events was not just the sessions, but the conversations between sessions. Right, just to have some, like, so you go to a session, but it would be like, oh, that guy was really interesting, or that, she was like really spot on with her questions. Let's go grab a coffee, and then you shoot some, ideas back and forth. That's the value of a lot of this. So that's why I'm excited about this, to get some of the most interesting and passionate people about teaching in one space and to just have conversations with them. Because as much as we love the Zoom stuff, right, we're kind of like jonesing for that social part of professional learning.
It's like the kids. Yeah.
Right. Just like the kids, so I'm excited that you're joining us. I'm excited for presenting there and meeting some of the folks for the first time. But I'm going to turn over to you. So maybe share a little bit about some of the ideas that you'll be presenting on, and maybe just some of your thoughts about attending the conference as well.
Yeah, I know that, that's, again, it's sometimes the blessing and the curse is I have the gift of gab, but it is fun to, and we've shared a lot of those experiences where we've just met people and you make connections and you network, and then you bring so much of that back to your own job, your own classroom in my case, and just seeing things that work and trying things and taking risks. I mean, it really is just it just fosters, like, these kind of events just foster that type of mindset, just like, I can take this back, like, this person did it, I can do it. I mean, in particular, I know Susie is presenting and I've seen her present before, and she's fascinating, and the way
Right.
that she has her kids on another, it's just another wavelength. But I've taken a lot of her ideas from the presentation that I saw years ago and put that stuff in
Mhm.
motion in my own room.
Right.
And I think that, what I've always been really passionate about is how to try to really make these tools work, especially within Google Workspace, right?
Mhm.
And so really, what I love data, I love numbers, I love spreadsheets, but not every teacher does. And and data is valuable when it is used the right way, right? When it's used for a purpose. And so really, my title is Managing Data Differentiation and Decision Making in Google Workspace. And so really, I'm going to focus, really on three major things. And so really, the first piece is really kind of how can we use some of the, even the most common tools, and show a lot of examples of how we've really leveraged these tools in Burrville, in terms of how do we visualize this data? How can we look at it and create groups? And I think that, especially in a year like this, where there's so many unknowns, using the quality assessments and the quality universal screeners that we have at our disposal, whether it's STAR or NWEA or whatever it might be, using those are quality assessments and they produce quality data, but sometimes that data is underutilized because just the ability to access the student performance is hard. And I think that's where, Workspace, there's a lot of value add to using to organizing data and to organizing a lot of the measurement tools, right? And making it friendly for teachers to use, because that data has to be actionable. You have to be able to implement it in your classroom to make informed decisions. And so really, we're going to talk about visualizing that data, how we can have quality conversations using, what we see in for example, a data meeting. So like in Burrville, we have data meetings once a month, and those have always been extremely productive because we've had a visual right in front of us,
Mhm.
something that we can look and we can see trends, we can see,
Right.
how many kids on one side or the other, and then have really deep discussions about what we're going to do as a group, right? Because we really, so much of this is team oriented. It just, like so much, whether you're virtual or you're in person, I mean, you need to move these kids as a team. And so, using that data effectively, we'll talk about really just how do we have those deep conversations and keeping them focused. And also, the other piece, we're going to talk about the actual tools that we can use to really discuss and decide how we're going to differentiate. And, the student gaps right now that exist because of COVID are numerous, but they're all still kind of unknown. So until we really start seeing the student performance, the student struggles,
Yeah.
we're going to use those tools. And one in particular that I've really tried to leverage this year is chat
Mhm.
and the spaces, and something that is still kind of in its infancy, and it continues to evolve. But from a coaching standpoint, I've used that to really disseminate schedules and assessment schedules, and to get the same common thinkers in one room, and the ability to assign tasks to certain people, and how it's all integrated. And I think it's a hugely underutilized tool that will really be kind of a centerpiece of what the presentation is. And then the other piece, the last big tenet is how we can, to our point earlier about taking, these kids to the conference and having them have that autonomy, is like, what are some best practices for putting data in the students' hands, right?
Right.
The students need to know where they stand, especially, and I think it's even more crucial this year. They have to know where they stand. And it's okay for them to know that they struggle in a certain area. And, beyond just the grades that they see in Skyward or Aspen, or whatever it might be. And then teaching them how to use their data and teaching them explicitly, how we group, how we can manage groups, how we can manage rotations. I mean, those things we've kind of gone away from because we've been virtual for
Right.
so long. And so I think it's as important as anything to kind of go back to what we were so good at already. We were good at rotating kids through and providing, short cycle interventions. And it's all about interventions now. And so the kids need to know that you need extra help here. Here's how we're going to get you here. Here are the interventions we're going to use. Here are the tools. And I want you to know why, because you're the most important piece of this intervention, not me.
Right. Yeah, and there's a couple things from that I'm really interested to learn more about from your session. Is just one, the idea that, especially as people have done more blended and personalized learning and a lot of the platforms that are out, especially for math and ELA, teachers have an enormous amount of data now to work from. But if it's not actionable, if you can't visualize it, if it doesn't help you teach, in a lot of ways, it's kind of worthless, right? I was always so frustrated as a teacher where, and I'd use a new tech tool and they would pitch to me like, oh, look at all these data dashboards you get. And I'm like, well, if it doesn't help me teach on Tuesday after Monday's lesson, how useful is that? And then the idea of having data in all different websites all over the place, so I'm interested in learning like some of your strategies on how do you make more sense of that. And then also the Google chat, like that's something that, I do all things Google, right? Everything I have is Google. I even have a Google Pixel phone. I've never really used the Google chat for like a professional learning. So I'm interested to learn what your workflows are with that. I know a lot of people at the conference are educators, but also are in coaching roles or in roles where they'll provide feedback to folks. So really interested to see some of the ways that you do that. And also I think as a way to do more asynchronous feedback and professional development with teachers, because that's always something. Like when I was doing a coaching role in my district, and a lot of people that are in that role, your biggest challenge is time. Live face-to-face time with folks is so scarce, right? So how can we provide people with feedback and foster communication and community in an asynchronous way? Because a lot of times that's the most efficient way to do it if you're in a coaching role.
Exactly.
So I think that's a really big takeaway that we can get from some of your work.
And I think that some of it is even that asynchronous contact. We know that our inboxes are just constantly full, and I think that the biggest value add for this chat, for example, is that it's all integrated. And so
Right.
For us to be able to make that contact and to do it, in a way that's quick,
Right.
like a lot of, it's interesting because when I started this role and I introduced myself to all the teachers, I said, I'm not going to be sending these massive long emails because
Right.
you don't have time to read them. And, I'm the same way. I see that long email, like I want something quick.
Right.
Because I have students or I have, the biggest issue is time. And so I think this has been really good to just disseminate information quickly and have it single stream so
Right.
that there's little room for interpretation and I can give them the exact answers that, that my colleagues need.
Right. And that's so helpful on the receiving end, like to be able to have quick information that you can just use. Like everyone has that colleague that will send out like the text wall email, right? And you just know like no one's reading this whole thing. So it is important to have that nice line of communication.
Yeah.
All right. So just to kind of wrap things up, I just want to give you a chance, like if folks wanted to reach out to you to connect, what are some ways that they could do that, to learn a little bit more about what you're working on, or maybe on social media? How could they connect with you?
Yep. So really, Twitter, I'm at kwilsonteach. All right. And so I also, my website is kjwilson.net. And those are really the best ways to reach out to me. And so really reach out to me that way. And I'm always happy to answer any sort of questions that you may have. And, and the more folks, especially in a role that is new to me, in terms of being math specific, the more folks, especially at this conference, that I can connect with, the better. Because, the most valuable piece of this is just connecting with other people.
Right.
Something that we've all been longing for in any context, even talking to you at a soccer game.
Right. That's right.
Like, you realize the small things that you missed.
Right.
And yeah, that's what I'm really excited for.
Yeah, and it seems those connections that you make through this, like, so I met you through EdTech, but also through friends and family. We see each other in a lot of spaces. My friend John Rollins is a teacher. I met him at an EdTech conference years ago, but then now our kids play soccer together all the time. So it is an interesting way to reach out and meet new folks. If you are interested in reaching out to Kyle, I'll put his Twitter handle somewhere on this feed after I edit it. If you can't make it to the conference, again, feel free to reach out to either of us. We're happy to share some of the resources from the day. We're going to be doing future events. This is our first live one in a while, but we're definitely going to be doing more of them. Also, this is just one of a series of videos that we're doing on our YouTube channel. So if you're interested in hearing interviews from, I think almost all of our keynote presenters are going to be on our YouTube channel. So feel free to check that out, subscribe, just so you can keep tabs on what we're doing. Also, we're looking for some feedback ourselves on these styles of conversations with experts in the field. So if you liked what we did, if you have any suggestions on a format, like if you're like, hey, this is great, but you should have turned it into a blog instead, or a podcast style. We're looking for feedback on how to do this too. So this is relatively new for us, and I'm really interested in this platform and just reaching new people and having conversations and sharing that out. So any feedback on that is much appreciated. So thank you, Kyle. Appreciate you taking the time this morning. I see you're at school, so I'm sure you got a busy day ahead of you. And I really look forward to seeing you at the conference.
Yeah, and no, it was a pleasure. No, it was wonderful talking to you, and we'll see you soon. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, everyone, for watching.